Welcome back to the Chosen Life podcast. Today's guest is not just a money man. He is our money man. He is the money man, Mr. Zachary Rain of Rain.Finance. Zach, welcome back to the Chosen Life.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I like the money man name. That really has a ring to it. But it's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I know you're very excited because today is day of taping is August 9th. We're taping in the evening. I'm having my first coffee of the day. It's been one of those days, Zach.
Oh,
But today is known now as a new holiday in Toronto. It is now Martin Jones Day.
Yeah,
the Martin Jones era has begun for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Zach, did you fall off your seat in excitement at this signing, or how do you feel about it?
It's funny because I was on Twitter during lunch, and
X, it's called X.
Or sorry, X. Yeah, X. I was on X.
You were Xing?
Yeah, exactly. I was Xering. And it was funny. The Leafs posted it, and I'm like, okay, it's a good signing, good depth. I have no problem with Martin Jones. I think he's mid-tier to higher quality backup, and at a good price point. A year contract, can't really be mad at either. So I was like, oh yeah, good for them. And then I went on Twitter. I'm like, 1,000 likes. Like 1,000 likes already. People are pretty happy about this. And just rolling through the comments, everybody's very happy with this acquisition, should we call it, or signing. But yeah, I like it. I think as far as a second or third string backup goalie, no complaints here.
I'm a little nervous, Zach, because reading through the lines here, Joseph Woll is our backup. I can't see how we're going to get this guy on our team and pass him through the minors, because apparently he has to be claimed on waivers. So Martin Jones era may in fact be a short one unless he plays okay. Nobody takes him, goes down to the Marlies, and he's there for support, I guess. It's one of those funny things, right? You could have a $100 million cap in your minor league system because it doesn't count, right? So you can have all these guys sitting away, but most people making that money do not want to go play in the minors.
No, I wonder. Because I think that he is a hedge on waivers. So I think you're right. There's that there because they don't want to lose Woll. I also think that there's new, and I don't know them fully, but I think there's new emergency backup goaltender rules where if like it's a last minute injury or something like that, they can call him up through a different system than the waiver system, the waiver wire. I don't know, if I'm completely honest with you. And considering Woll and Samsonov are injured every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, definitely not a bad idea to have them available. So we'll see.
You mean this Zambroni driver rule?
Yeah, exactly. Well, they that's exactly it, right? They created it after the Zamboni drivers.
There we go. And we don't really want Zamboni drivers being our goalies, but that is not the topic of today or Martin Jones. We got a lot to cover today. Today is going to be a fun day because it's going to be all about hockey. And we're all just sitting there and kind of left in shell shock over the Erik Karlsson trade. Erik with a K, turns out. It's Erik Karlsson with two S's. Oh, just spelling this guy's name is complicated. Now, Zach, I wanted to start off with, saying that I was very skeptical about this move, given his recent play of late years. I mean, he had a great deal last year, as far as stats wise, finishing with 101 points, and nobody's done that in quite a while. And that obviously got people excited. But I thought to myself, you know what? The guy's been around for a while. Got to be late 30s, early 40s. No, he's only 33 years old, Mr. Karlsson.
Yeah, no, he's one of those guys where, so I've seen him play twice. I saw Toronto play San Jose last year, and I saw him play in Ottawa years and years and years ago. And my first impression of him was like, holy hell, that guy can skate. Like he floats on the ice. Then when I saw him play San Jose against the Leafs, he really drives the puck. The guy, he's a puck mover. He, what Roman Yossi's been touted to be so good at over these last few years, and earned him so much respect. And Norris, at least namings. Karlsson's better. He is. Now he's had a couple bad years prior to, obviously his 101 point season. Yeah, 4 bad years. But I don't know. Here's the thing. If Dubas gets 2022 Karlsson, great trade. If Dubas gets 2018 Karlsson, he's going to be hating that $10 million hit.
Thing is, though, playing with Sidney Crosby and Malkin kind of help things along, don't they? Makes a lot of people look really good out there.
It's funny because he says, like, I'm so excited to be playing on a contender, and everyone's like, wow, they didn't even make the playoffs last year. But you got Sidney Crosby and Malkin on your team, you're a Stanley Cup contender every year. I'm sorry. So
I got so many questions that are flowing through my mind. So I'm going to try to keep them in order. My first question to you, Zach, is why is Erik Karlsson not a Toronto Maple Leaf today?
So Dubas he said it in his press conference. He said that he was trying to get Karlsson on the Leafs for the playoff run last year. Why isn't he? He is not a Maple Leaf for the same reason that, if I'm being completely honest, I don't necessarily see the reason that he should have been a Pittsburgh Penguin. So you like Karlsson, when you look at the value that he brings to a team, smooth skater, great puck mover, tons of skill on the backhand to drive and play forward, which is, great. But, that's an offensive defenseman, right? Like, there's not a position on the ice called an offensive defenseman. There's just a position called defenseman, right? You have a poor man's Erik Karlsson, which it's not such a large jump down in Chris Letang, because I think Chris Letang is fantastic. But he is no Erik Karlsson. So I don't see really a reason to have both of them. And it's the same reason I don't see him being a Maple Leaf. We got Morgan Riley, who up until last year's playoffs, I was not a fan of him, but he was spectacular. Great skating, puck moving, defensive, good at driving play, offensive defenseman. So I really don't think you need more than one, maybe two of those on your team. And, I definitely don't think you need two of Karlsson's and Letang's caliber. I would have definitely, and I think that's where Brendan Shanahan and Tree Living are going to come in. And it's probably why Shanahan, if anything, nixed the trade to him becoming a Leaf, because I'd rather a 6'5" monster who will just beat the living hell out of whoever's in front of the net. So that to me.
Okay, so next question for you is like this. So this trade was taking a while to make. Everybody knew he was going to Pittsburgh pretty much. Carolina was not going to happen. But the issue was we had to find a third team. Everybody searched around for this third team. Why did the Montreal Canadiens step up and help Dubas and the Penguins in this case? Did it really benefit them?
I think the Habs walked out better than anybody in that trade, if I'm being honest. They got Jeff Petrie back, who, he's a little bit of a putz, but I think he's still a good he's still 6'2", 6'3", strong right-handed defensemen, which are more than hard enough to come by. So if he can keep his mouth shut and play hockey properly, then the Canadians got him for practically nothing. So
but they did get my boy Casey DeSmith.
They did. DeSmith,
I think he's very underrated as a goaltender. I think he's going to do well there. I think he's going to do well there.
I agree. I don't know. I was looking at it and I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, why did they have to move to Smith in this trade? Like, he's the 1.8 million that they needed for when Jake Gensel comes back. He's a sacrifice of poor cap management. But
is this it boiled down to, if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to analyze this trade because it's a lot of capology involved with this. But essentially, Pittsburgh did not have dollars to be able to take on Karlsson. Now they fit Karlsson into the cap and still have $3 million to play with, if I'm not mistaken.
So they have $6 million right now with Gensel on LTIR. When Gensel comes back, they'll be pretty much even at the cap height. It's another reason I just don't think Pittsburgh is going to be a Stanley Cup contending team, because like their top 6 forwards are great. Their top really even 3 defensemen, because they picked up Graves as well, who I've always been a fan of Ryan Graves when he was on New Jersey as well. And so, their top 3 defensemen are also like very good. Erik Karlsson, Letang, Graves, and even Peterson, however you pronounce his name, is not a bad defenseman. So they're not bad. They're going to be a good team, but their bottom 6, they have Nola Chari, which, we loved him on the Leafs. But that's pretty much it on their bottom end. So we'll see. The one thing Dubas did really well in this trade, which I'll credit him to, is he dumped a lot of underperforming cap. Like Granlund on Pittsburgh didn't do much. Petrie on Pittsburgh didn't do much. Also huge cap hit. So, those 2 are major wins to begin with, in getting rid of those, that useless dollars.
So from the Penguins' point of view, Did they get much else with Karlsson? I'm looking at these names: Dylan Hamlak, Ram
No,
Pitlick. They don't sound very impressive to me.
no. Pitlick is a fourth liner. If he gets 30 or 40 points this next year, I'd say he's probably going to have the season of his life. Otherwise, not really. There was one team I can't remember got a first rounder. I think it may have been San Jose, Pittsburgh's first rounder or whatever it is.
Correct. They got the 2024 first rounder.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most value of anyone that was traded aside from Karlsson and Petrie.
We also have Pittsburgh's 2025 second rounder and San Jose's 2026 third rounder. Ooh. Now,
yeah.
are the Sharks basically left with a first rounder and a pile of beans? Like,
yes.
In normal sports, back in the day, Zach, before all this cap stuff was around, you used to get value for your star players. You used to get like 2 or 3 top prospects. Now you're basically happy to get them off your salary cap and on your way. So did they really get any value here, or was that salary just such a hindrance for the acquisition of talent?
I think it's one of those things where the guy didn't want to be there, so you kind of have to do right by him. On the same token, a couple high round picks is great. And the fact that they really didn't have to, and like don't forget, we're in an era now where $1 million of cap money is huge, right? So the fact that they didn't really retain much of any cap is also pretty good. It's pretty big for San Jose. So,
I mean, look at Karlsson. Back in the day, he was in Ottawa, Ontario. For all you people in the States and Europe, etc. Ottawa is capital of Canada, but good luck in finding it. It's kind of in between Toronto and Montreal. We get lost, you'll find Ottawa. So Karlsson finds his way to San Jose, signs that big deal. Besides that 101 point season in San Jose, 45, 40, 22, 35 points a year. Yeah. He was not heading in the right direction here. Now, they must feel that he's discovered something as far as what was going wrong with him. They're thinking he's healthy now. He's got everything on track. They must, because otherwise this season is a really big aberration. But man, he was a really solid player all year. Like, we got to give him credit. People were talking about him all year. And for a really bad Sharks team to get that points number, I would say kudos to him. He earned it.
No, absolutely. I think there was the injury problems that plagued him. On top of that, I think moving Brenton Burns out did something for him. I don't know, like looking at that team and watching them play, I think Brent Burns was still your certified number one, even though Karlsson was on the team, which maybe somebody didn't want to understand or hear or appreciate. But now you got Burns out. He's in Carolina. It's like, it's you or no one, Karlsson. Like you got to drive the bus. So maybe that did something for him too. I don't know. We'll see.
Brent Burns, where was he drafted originally?
Yeah, I know. I think he was drafted to Toronto, no?
Burns, not that I'm aware of, but
or no, he's from Toronto.
Yeah, but I could have sworn it was Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong.
I could look it up right now.
Yeah, look it up while we're talking. But the reason why I tell you is because I know somebody who was very high on Brent Burns. It was Brent Burns' dad. I actually got to meet Brent Burns' dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm like, no way you're Brent Burns' dad. And he showed me his license. He showed me all the pictures on his cell phone. I'm like, okay, I guess you're Brent Burns' dad. And this is before Brent Burns became Brent Burns. Before he became, like, he was always a top prospect, but before he really blossomed.
This is when he was still left winger.
It was still like, Yeah. Now, I would tell you, any team would love to have Brent Burns on their team. Like, how good would he look on the Leafs? Come on.
So he's Minnesota and
Minnesota. There you go.
I would have killed when I found out that he was on the move from San Jose. Yeah. I was on Twitter just scrolling, praying to the hockey gods, looking up Leafs trade rumors. God, he is like the perfect defenseman for what the Leafs need.
So now, why is Karlsson not a Hurricane? Simple dollars?
Dollars. The Hurricanes are already cap pressed. They're going to have to get rid of another defenseman soon too.
So if you're going to look in your crystal ball now and say, what kind of season you think Karlsson's going to have in Pittsburgh? You don't know what the injury status is going to be. You don't know how the team's going to perform. But if you're a betting man now, where do you see a season playing out? For that,
I see him around 85 points. I see him plus for the first time in a while, which I think will be really nice for him. Probably playing 75, maybe 74 games. I don't think that they're going to run him ragged. better to do wear and tear, not to mention, but that to me, I have to put a condition on that. That to me is a condition on Chris Letang, right? Like if Chris Letang can stay healthy and play games, then that's the result. If not, then he's going to drive the bus.
I just got this. Yeah.
At least on defense, he will. He won't drive the bus entirely.
I feel like looking at Crosby and Malkin across the locker room, I feel like he's going to be very energized and very, very happy with life. I think he's going to beat his 101-point season.
Really?
Yes. I think this will be his last big year, but I think he's going to come out flying. I see good things for Mr. Karlsson this year, and I'm very excited for him. And this was ultimately the best spot for him, I think, as far as if you can go to a quote-unquote contender, play with the big boys. I mean, aside from going to Edmonton, right? But there's a funny thing. There's like another reason why Dubas is in Pittsburgh, for example. There's something about the allure of the Penguins, Lemieux, Jagr, Crosby. There's just a feeling around that town. It's a very special hockey town. And there's just something very special with sitting there with Crosby versus going to Edmonton. And obviously we know what's going on with McDavid and Draisaitl. But Pittsburgh's a just different creature. And that gives me a segue to our another topic, which is at the end of the day, Kyle Dubas found his way to Pittsburgh. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We all kind of saw the writing on the wall on this. It was funny how it played out because we know Pittsburgh was looking for a GM. They fired Hextall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were kind of holding off. And then, Dubas has his press conference where he says, I got to reassess things and everything else. Everybody was sure he's coming back. I can't see myself, employed by another team. And then the next day they have a press conference. Oh, he's fired, by the way. Next press conference. Oh, by the way, I'm on my way to the Penguins. We all saw this coming.
Yeah.
Let's start off now with the Maple Leafs. You take a look, I always bring it up as far as the comparison, but you look at Alex Anthopoulos in baseball, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had him with the Blue Jays, what he put together with the Blue Jays. And then there was a power struggle. So Anthopoulos said, you know what? I don't need to deal with this. He goes off to the Dodgers. He becomes an assistant GM, whatever he was over there, VP. And then he goes off to the Braves and he wins a World Series with the Braves. Is Dubas the next Anthopoulos? And this is what he's going to do for Pittsburgh. Did the Maple Leafs screw up by losing their boy genius?
No, I think the boy genius, if we're being honest, is their cap cruncher. Dubas did an okay job after his first few mistakes, which, that's just growing pains with a new GM, especially one who's never been a GM in the pros. So I shouldn't say pros because I guess the AHL is still considered pros in the NHL. But I think it was growing pains. And then after that, he had a transitional period where he was still being a GM for a good AHL team. And I think Shanahan must have started breathing down his neck and getting, much bigger size players. And I think that's the value in tree living, because at the end of the day, it's like I said, like, why does Pittsburgh need another better version of Chris Letang? They already have one. So, for $10 million, you could get two big, solid, mean defensemen that are still puck moving defensemen, and that could move that net. Like if you look at, I was reading an article. If you look at the Las Vegas Golden Knights, that team would still eat Pittsburgh up. They would eat their lunch. They would take them out. It wouldn't even be close. The Florida Panthers would beat the hell out of Pittsburgh, because at the end of the day, you need that physical presence to make it long in the playoffs. And like, you're not getting that with Erik Karlsson.
So the thing with Dubas, this is right or wrong. Maybe it's unfair, but I feel like if you look back at the early history of the setup when he came in, right? Mm-hmm. We had that three-headed monster of a GM in Toronto, right? We had Lou Lamoriello, Mark Hunter, and Kyle Dubas. When we had the three of them in place, I felt a lot better. We got a good brain trust going here with Shanahan president. Things felt really good. And then Mark Hunter eventually wasn't too happy about the setup. He goes back to London. Lamoriello's not happy. He goes to the Islanders. All of a sudden, they're making the playoffs. Now we're left with Dubas. I feel like Dubas is riding on the coattails of that setup a little bit. He hasn't shown as much on his own.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, if I'm going to be totally transparent, I don't know what he was thinking making himself GM. I would have gone and been the president like he set up. You would get the same salary, go put in a puppet GM, and then something goes wrong. It's the GM's fault. What am I supposed to do about it? see Shanahan, right? Did
Yeah.
Shanahan go and make himself the GM? No, he doesn't, because it's nice and cushy in the president job. So I thought he had the common sense to do that, but he's like, you know what? I'm so damn good at this job that I might as well just be doing it all at this point. Like, he might as well name himself head coach also. I think he's gonna rue that day as far as staying in the trenches as a GM, because the buck is only gonna come and stop with him now. And if there's a problem with him as GM, he's not just gonna lose his GM job, he's gonna lose his presidency as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I see what you're saying. I didn't even think of it that way, but you're right. There was probably
That's
a good
why they
amount
pay
of
me the
ego
big
in
bucks,
play.
brother.
That's exactly right. That's why you're chosen. You've been touched by God. Um, but yeah, I don't. You're right. It's not a smart move. I guess it's probably all of his frustrations with having to coordinate with Brendan Shanahan. He figured it might as well be the whole chain of command. Which, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think he's going to rue the day too, because Pittsburgh just. I don't want to doubt Sidney Crosby, but Pittsburgh, I don't think they got another run in them.
And it's that kind of elephant in the room, but one more concussion, and you may not be seeing Sid the Kid so many times anymore. Like, it's scary if you think about his injury record and how much he's been able to produce given it. But concussions is a very scary thing. And when you've had a few of them in your career, all it takes is one. Plus, he's getting up on years. There isn't that much behind in the bank once you take Crosby and take Malkin out of the equation. But that being said, if they are both healthy or fairly healthy, I'd rather take those two than the top two lines of any other team.
No, I'm with you. I'd still take Crosby over McDavid, which is going to be an extremely unpopular opinion. But you got one guy who's got proven winning success and a guy who just knows how to win hockey games, playoffs, championships. So I'm with you. I love Crosby, but it's like you said, I think the guy's like 36, 37 years old now. He's been in the NHL almost 20 years. He's not what he used to be, though he's still fantastic. He's just not what he used to be. And I don't think there's a team around him like he once had.
So I guess we are in agreement that at this point in time, don't think the Leafs are going to miss Kyle Dubas.
No, I don't think so. I already think that the moves Tree Living has made are better than anything Dubas has done in a while.
First of all, his press conferences are awesome. It's just great because I feel like if you invite Brad to dinner, Brad's going to be very social. He'll be a good guest. Kyle Dubas is going to spend the whole night telling you about why he's so great. That's how I feel like the difference between the two. I like his moves as well, which we're going to get to in a moment. But really, I don't think they're cut from that different of a cloth at the end of the day. I think that he's also a risk taker, smart guy. Let's be honest, you can't make major moves without running by ownership anyways. So I'm glad that they got somebody with some pedigree. Look, he's going to get faulted for what happened in Calgary as far as that trade with the Panthers go, but his hands were tied. What was he going to do?
No, exactly.
Your guy wants to get traded and he wants to go to the Panthers. What are you going to do? We're seeing this across sports, Zach. It's becoming an epidemic where guys sign these contracts and then they're saying, hey, you know what? I demand a trade. I don't want to play anymore. So why can't we have this? First of all, you don't want to play? That's fine. Don't make money. Go sit at home. I don't care. Why can't owners do that? And number two, you have these player opt-out clauses. Why can't we have owner opt-out clauses? Do you know in these 7-8 year contracts, how many owners would opt out if they could out of these contracts, Zach? But yet it's so one-sided, but yet it's all about the owners. It's not. It's really all about the players at the end of the day. And if you're not sure about that, just check out the NBA, right? You can never go any period in the NBA without one player at least being on the sidelines demanding a trade. Right now we're watching it with Damian Lillard in Portland, where you're saying, oh, I signed this big contract. I'm going to be here forever. Next, I will only go to Miami, and that's it.
No, I'm with you. It's becoming absolutely ridiculous. It's just a result of the players' unions. Unions are growing strong. Unions have tons of power. Not that unions are the problem, but there's just definitely an imbalance of power between a union and an owner organization. So, and not to mention like the buyout formula too. Why can't they at least, change the buyout formula for the owners? Because it hurts. If you look at some of these buyouts, it's still hurting teams, especially in a low cap era.
And the players just taking his money and running. It's hilarious.
Oh, they're fine.
But I challenge anybody, if you go meet players and you get autographs from any of the four major sports, being the NHL, the NFL, the NBA, and MLB, the nicest players always are NHL players by far. Most down to earth, relatively, compared to all the other sports. But that being said, if you compare now the salary cap structures, one NFL player very often is making more than the entire NHL team. Like the NHL is so out of whack compared to all the other salaries out there in sports leagues. It's ridiculous.
No, I'm with you. But the problem is that it's played on ice. It needs to be in an arena that is refrigerated, freezing cold, that can have proper maintenance. Like baseball stadiums are what? How many people? 50,000?
40 to 50,000. Ridiculous.
Okay. And football stadiums, similar?
70,000.
Exactly. What do we get in Scotiabank?
15, 17,000.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're getting half to a third of the income. So you're paying your players half to a third of, well, maybe even less than that, but still.
But think about MLB. They're playing in those stadiums for 162 games. You got 81 home games. NFL, you got 16 games, 8 home games. And you have a quarterback making 50 million US.
Yeah.
And the top NHL player makes what, 13, 14 mil?
Yeah, 14 million.
They have to go bust their butts out there for 82 games on the ice. And these guys are playing 16 games. Like I'm just saying, relatively, it's pretty nuts.
You're so right. It's the old conversation about advertising money, where it's getting spent, and how the US market is bigger than the Canadian market.
If I had the dollars and I was able to, and I wanted to invest in what I thought was a smart return, an NHL team, I still think they're very undervalued. I think the most room to grow from all the sports leagues is the NHL. And I mean, look, they're dying for sports content on these channels. Zach, when I'm waiting for Monday Night Raw to start, you know what I'm watching at 7:30 p.m.? I'm still watching poker. Well, I have it on mute while I'm waiting for Raw to start. But they're literally dying for content. And here you go, you got a sports league. I'm telling you, with the way they got the salary cap structure and everything else, the reins are going to get loosened. They're going to go to a softer cap than a hard cap, and the dollars are going to fly. You watch, because I guarantee you in the next 10 years, you're going to see a $20 million+ player in the NHL.
I hope you're right, because that means they're playing more games and I get to watch more hockey.
And the other thing is, when you think about that, 162 games is a lot of games for baseball. I mean, really.
I'm with you. I can't believe it.
I'm a diehard myself, but can you imagine you have to be retired to be able to go to 81? I mean, who working is able to go to 81 home games, first of all? Yeah. And can you imagine, like in a homestand of like 9 games, you're going to 9 games in the span of 10, 11 days? That's a hard pill to swallow.
That's wild. Not to mention their poor arms. Like it's like the sport is intensive really on like 3 body parts. It's not like it's, you're using so many different facets of your body. Like it's 3 body parts. Could you imagine? Their trainers probably make fortunes.
But then imagine in baseball, you used to have pitchers that always pitch complete games, Zach. They could pitch 150, 200 pitches. Now they're capped at 100 pitches, okay? They pitch 5 innings, 6 innings. Things have gone the other way. But, like, that's where all sports, especially the NHL, and anybody's ever said, I went to the facility, by the way. If everybody's ever gone to Gary Roberts' facility up in Newmarket, Ontario, Gary Roberts is a nut as far as health goes, and I had to go see the facility for myself. This is where the players are doing their thing in the offseason. They're not going sitting at the bar and drinking and gaining weight. They are at performance centers, and they're coming in shape to training camp. And so it's a whole different ball game. And you go see what an athlete from any sport, baseball, NHL, and look at what they look like today at training camp, and go look at what they looked like 30 years ago, night and day.
Absolutely. Wayne Gretzky always says that too. They used to smoke cigarettes and drink beers in the room.
Well, I don't know if I ever seen Wayne do that, but I'll take his word.
No, not him. I'm talking about the people on his team, but yes, of course. Yes, no, Wayne Gretzky is a different breed.
I have seen a couple of pictures of Gretzky with a little bit of red under his eyes and a little red nose, but maybe he just had a cold that day. Brad Treve leaving. Now, Brad.
Yeah.
Good Brad. Now, I wanted to look at a couple of his moves, because I got to tell you, I got really, really excited in the offseason. I don't get very excited about Toronto Maple Leafs very often, to be frank. I have these players in mind, and I'm thinking they're just not going to pull the trigger. I remember when 2 seasons ago, Max Domi was available, and we don't go get him, even though he wants to come here. Then you got the big bad Bruins. And what do? They go off and trade for Tyler Bertuzzi, who I thought was a perfect fit.
Me too.
And now all of a sudden the offseason comes and Taylor Hall is off to the Blackhawks out of all things. So he's gone. Mm-hmm. And Bertuzzi does not return to Boston. He actually signed with the Leafs and they made it fit under the cap. Zach, these are the exact kind of players we need. I was channeling this. I know you were as well. Please rate these transactions for us. And how did the Leafs pull this off?
I could not be happier. I have been waiting for a little bit of, what do they call it? Snot, piss, and vinegar to be on this team for so long. You know, not that I'm coach of the year here, but I coached a couple championship teams, assistant coach, head coach, whatever you want to call it. Okay. I was on the benches for a few different championship teams, and every single team had the same thing in common. It's not just an NHL formula. Okay. Even when you're coaching 10-year-old kids in single A or double A in the GTHL, you need to have snot. There needs to be, my little brother, he says it all the time. He goes, we don't want players who want to win. That's not the type of player we want. Okay. We want somebody who hates losing. Okay. We want somebody who will piss and moan at the thought of losing. Forget about wanting to win. Wanting to win is great. It's the idea that losing just pisses you off. And those guys always come to play. They're in your face. They're up your you-know-what, trying to figure out where they can get the puck. Okay? Get me this puck. Put this puck towards the net. And, man, Bertuzzi, I love him. I thought it was hilarious, too, when he took, what's-his-face's stick in the round against Florida. Like, he's another one who will be right up it. And the guy's got tons of skill too. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be a big scoop for the Leafs. And I'm sure that's where the 1-year contract comes in. And Domi coming here is like a fairy tale story. I don't know how the hell it took this long, because as far as depth players that the Leafs have signed over the last few years, he's for sure better than most of them at the same pay grade. So I don't know why it took him so long to get here.
I'll tell you exactly why, Zach.
Yeah.
Because it came to the point when he just learned to shut up and play hockey. Part of the problem was that you knew Max Domi from his mouth and the interviews he gave and not his production on the ice. Once he got over his own hype and just focused on putting his game together and you stopped hearing his voice and started seeing his actions on the ice, that's when you started to want him. And I think the Leafs had to see that for real, because a big personality in a big city can be a recipe for disaster. That's why he was off in Dallas. That's why he was off to Chicago, kind of be in Carolina. He's a little safer over there. In Toronto, because of the last name that he sports on his jersey. I mean, his dad, come on, besides the fact that he was well-loved in the city as a hockey player, he's the biggest social climber known to man. This guy is in every inner circle known possible. You see pictures of him with David Beckham in Muskoka, okay?
Yeah.
He dated Belinda Stronach for the longest time. This is the act that Max has to follow. And the problem is that people want to talk about his dad as much as they want to talk about him. Now, when they're kind of over his dad for a while and he's not voicing his opinion so much and he's just going and putting a grinding game. Like, to me, he's the kind of guy who's going to give like hits, and he's going to score you probably at least 20 goals. Like, that's where I see a good Max Domi at. Bertuzzi, with the line mates he's going to have, if he's semi-healthy, should get at least 25 goals. I love these two moves. And this is exactly what we need to put together. And I was so jealous of Boston when they got Bertuzzi. I gave us a 0% chance. I thought there was no chance in hell he's going to come here. I was sure he's going to come to Boston. But funny, in Boston, losing the way they did in the playoffs, the allure went off really quickly. They went from being the most magical team they might as well hand them the Stanley Cup now, to this is a disaster. It's an old team. It's funny how they turned overnight.
It's true. And then Bergeron retires, and now you just got a bad taste in your mouth. So I'm with you. I think Boston's on the decline. I think Bertuzzi saw that. And as far as, top teams in the NHL goes, the Leafs are still up there. They have to be up there. And for whatever reason, they always lose to the team that ends up going to the Stanley Cup final. So it's great moves. Bertuzzi, he's going to put up 90 points this year. he's going to have an unreal year. And what he's going to do, which I'm most happy about, is he is going to be up Mitch Marner's butt. Because at the end of the day, like, to me, Bertuzzi is playing first line. That's just the way it is. Matthew Knies is not going to be playing first line anymore. You got Bertuzzi up there with Matthews and Marner. It's your certified first line. Stay healthy, and that should be the line you play 82 games with post or in the preseason and roll with into the playoffs. And he's going to open the ice up for Marner. He's going to be up Marner's you know what, and he's going to plant his butt in front of the net and just let Matthews and Marner wire pucks. So I could not be happier. And Domi, up and down the lineup, the guy's a chameleon. He can play anywhere. His game, his style of play, his skill set, he'll be good first line, second line, third line, fourth line. No, I don't want him on the first line because, like I said, Bertuzzi. But don't you think?
Never know. You never know. Depends on how they play. People are injured, blah, blah, blah. It could happen. I'm very excited about the season. Like, even Samsonov, remember, Samsonov, up until December, was 1A, 1B with Matt Murray. There was no guarantees of who was going to be the number one until Murray kind of faded there, and, we won't get into that. But he comes into camp knowing he's the number one guy, and Wall played really well. And I think this is a case where you can have, I think they're going to split it 60, kind of go 65-35% split. For every two that Samsonov plays, Wall plays one. I think they need to keep Samsonov fresh. This is not, you cannot have it out there 70 games. But
No.
you know what? I'm excited. One that I did read about, though, recently, gotta ask you, come opening season, our old friend Jack Campbell, you think he's going to be in the Oilers system? Is he going to be still wearing an Oilers uniform? Or you think they're going to trade him for another bad contract? Where do you see going with Campbell?
He's a hard one, right? Because who's going to take his contract? He
it's got to be bad contract for bad contract. That's how I see it.
Okay, but what kind of bad contract? The only bad contracts you're going to take now are just going to be high cap, right? High cap, too much term, which is exactly what he has. I'd like to see who would even take him on. And, for that, you're going to have to pay a boatload. Like, you're talking multiple high round picks to get rid of, what's left of a 5 and change by 4, right? That's a big boatload. I'm sure they're trying to get rid of him because there really isn't much of a reason to keep him at this point. But the Oilers to me, they're a weird situation because they could be a really, really good team. And, the Ekholm move and everything last year really kind of gave them that extra push, but it fizzled out again. And I don't know. I had an Edmonton-Toronto final.
Are they that different than the Penguins when it comes down to it? I mean, not having the depth, goaltending being two major stars. I think they're all kind of in the same boat here, and that's where, Vegas, think how much depth Vegas has, and they got everybody back for the playoffs. Tampa had the same thing. It's all about depth, but where depth doesn't seem to matter and people don't seem to care is in the goalie position, because, Linus Ullmark was absolutely stellar. Then he falls apart. Bobrovsky wakes up all of a sudden. Then he falls apart in the finals. And correct me if I'm wrong, is Connor Hellebuyck not still a Winnipeg Jet?
Yeah, no, that to me is going to be a big one.
What's he doing? What's he doing in Winnipeg still? Can he find his way out of town? Like, what's going on there?
I think they're waiting. I don't think there's a rush, and I think they're going to get an absolute fortune, like a king's ransom for him.
I feel like NHL teams, Zach, they don't value the goalie position as much as they used to. Like, we don't have a Martin Brodeur per se. No. You have a couple of great guys, obviously, in Tampa and Ullmark, etc. But reality is, a lot of these goaltenders are just these middling guys, and you know what? They're all in about the same stats, and nobody's that caring about it. They're not going to waste their salary cap on a goaltender, and they're like, you know what? I'll just bring up a young guy to be my backup and keep a veteran guy going. And this seems to be consistent across the league. Like, the goaltending position has really evolved over the years.
I think the goaltending position has evolved. I think it's become, like, the goaltending job has become so much harder. But, I was having this discussion with my buddy the other day because, like, teams with moderately good goaltending have been winning one-offs. Avalanche, Vegas did too. I'm sorry, but Adin Hill is not, Andre Vasilevsky. And the one thing he said to me that kind of sat in with me, and I could see where he was going, was you don't necessarily need the best goaltending to win a Stanley Cup anymore in the NHL, but you need the best goaltending to be in the fight every year to create that dynasty. Like, Tampa Bay, it's the first time they've been out of the first round in 7 years. Vasilevsky's a stunner, right? When Pittsburgh was in the run every year, Marc-Andre Fleury was a stunner, right? You have to have that extra. Boston, Tuukka Rask, another team. Boston's always been in the play, in the hunt, and they had Tuukka Rask for years and years and years. So I think when you have that kind of caliber goalie, you'll always be in the fight and you'll always have a chance to win. But, like the Avalanche last year, what did they do, right? So I think it's interesting. Vegas, didn't they miss the playoffs the year before last?
Yeah, but they still kept themselves rolling, and they keep finding a way. And it's funny because they end up with goaltender number 4 and still find a way to win the Stanley Cup, where every other team would implode with goalie number 3. Which I got to ask you, have we seen the last of Robin Lehner? Is he going to be golfing indefinitely with Matt Murray or rebuilding a snake farm? What do you think is going to be happening with Robin Lehner?
Like, I don't think he was good enough to come back, if I'm being completely honest. Like the headaches that he's caused. It's hard to say no because of Evander Kane, right? Like when Evander Kane came back, no one saw it coming. He was a good hockey player. Don't get me wrong.
Dan Milstein did.
Yeah, Dan Milstein. That's right. Dan Milstein did. But
Robin Lehner, if you're not represented by him, call up Dan Milstein.
There's one man.
Gold Star Hockey, and he will find a way for you. Robin Lehner is one of those guys, they say like $1 million talent and a 10-cent brain. And that's where it feels like that Max Domi comment I made, where sometimes you just got to shut up and play, Don't worry about snake farms and all this stuff. Just go and worry about hockey, and that's it. And just focus on hockey. And I feel like when you have a lot of distractions off the ice, especially from a personal standpoint, in the goalie position, it's all mental. So you got 10 million thoughts up there. The last thing you're thinking about is stopping pucks. So, and he's talked about his mental health issues before on another note. So if I'm a betting man right now, I don't see him playing another game, but I could be wrong.
I'm with you. That's my initial thought. The only underlying little thing nagging at me is the fact that I think he just claimed bankruptcy in 3 different states or whatever it was. So, he's going to have 10 million thoughts, and the first 10 million of them are going to be, how am I putting food on the table? So he may have no choice but to start playing hockey again and keep his mouth shut. And, obviously there's a factor of his mental health, which you can't dispute. It is what it is up there, unfortunately, and he needs the help or whatever help he needs. But he may have no choice. We'll see. Who knows?
If you're the Maple Leafs and Robin Lehner gets released and he's 100% healthy, he's past the bankruptcies, everything's good from a legal standpoint, and he's 100% healthy and he's more motivated than ever, do you take a chance on him, sign him for the minimum, or you pass?
Sign him for the minimum, maybe, but for a guy who's publicly open about his mental health struggles, which, there's no shame in that. There's a majority of people in this world have mental health struggles, but I don't know if the majority of people in the world with mental health struggles will try and sign up in the biggest pressure cooker there is in hockey. So,
and this is funny because he does struggle, but on the other hand, he keeps asking for the microphone and then keeps blabbering to the reporters. So it's one of those things I'd have in the contract. As long as you can kind of keep your interviews down to 30 seconds or less, we'd be good to go. But with his talent, I mean, think about it. Vegas gave up Fleury to keep him around.
That to me just didn't make sense. I still don't think he's better than Fleury, but who knows?
He was a guy that at the time, remember the Leafs did acquire him for 3 seconds and then flipped him, right?
Yeah.
But I think he would have been a great number 3 goalie at the time. But c'est la vie. As we wrap up today's episode, Zach, we covered a lot of gauntlet today in NHL hockey. I got to ask you, do you see the Leafs making any other moves between now and training camp?
Absolutely.
You do, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. They need, and he knows it, they need 2 big defensemen. That's what Leafs need. Thank God they moved on from Justin Holl. I could not be happier. But Giordano is a 7-8 at best. And I think they're looking to move Brody for whatever reason. I think part of the reason Brody left Calgary is because of tree living. So I think they're looking to move him too, which at $5 million last year, Brody wasn't worth $5 million. So I still think that they got 2 more moves on defense. On forward, I don't see much more going on because they've already gotten such great depth signings. And they have a pretty good farm team, right? The Bobby McMahons got to play. the Matthew Nyes. They've got to play. So,
Oh, he's
you
playing.
know,
There's no doubt. The Nice is going to have a big rookie season. I see.
I hope so too.
55 points for him.
I would be so happy with that. Not to mention, I see a situation where Nylander's gone before the season starts.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, from a cap standpoint, if you can get more depth, I mean, somebody's going to have to go. They can't keep all these guys forever, right?
No, and he wants 10 million bucks. He's not worth 10 million bucks.
So you're predicting that when we have opening night, William Nylander is not going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf.
I am predicting that by the end of the season, William Nylander will not be a Maple Leaf. If the Leafs are smart, if Tree Living is smart, that at some point this year he'll be moved. And if he's really smart, it'll be before this year starts.
And it's interesting from a cap standpoint, you have to have the cap ready for opening night. So training camp's a whole different creature. There's gonna be a lot of teams that are gonna have to shuffle contracts around, move people to the minors, etc. I think if the Leafs are gonna make any more moves, I think we're gonna see them more closer to training camp, and I think they're gonna try to skim off people's rosters where they can. But I agree with you; they got to get a couple more defensemen in there and just get a little more depth. If I had to bet one guy's gonna go between the big three from the forward standpoint. And it's a shame because he played so well for us last year, but I would agree with you. Nylander is the one to go. It's not going to be Austin Matthews. Austin Matthews, he's going to get that $15 million contract.
Hope it's not 15. I heard at one point it was 12.5, and then suddenly it's 13.5, and then it's 13.8. But like, he has said he's going to sign, and Dubas said he will never play on it, be in another GM. So it's hard to believe these things, but I think I'd be pretty happy. I don't know. Like if the Leafs just posted, we got Austin back 4 years, 13.5 million, how would you feel?
I'd be okay with that. I'd be very okay with that. But it's funny because in relative terms, on our other program on the Chosen Journey with Steve Carsey, we were talking that Shohei Ohtani in baseball is a free agent this year, and $500 million is the floor. Okay. Yeah. And there is talk that somebody's going to pony up close to $1 billion. $1 billion. But let's say it's going to be between 500 to 700 million. And here we are nickel and diming $12.5 million to $15 million. NHL, it lives in its own world, Zach, because if this was any other sport, they would just write the check and move on.
I'm with you. I don't know. They got to figure it out. You got to get rid of Gary Bettman first, then see how it goes.
Guess what? Bettman got the cap in for the owners, somehow beat the union for that. No other union would agree to that. I think Bettman is in for life considering what he brought to the owners. Remember, at the end of the day, commissioners work for the owners, not for the players. And from every other sport, they look at, think about in the NFL, when you have all your quarterbacks making $50 million a year and now they're going towards guaranteed contracts, you got to say, you know what, the NHL is actually doing something right there.
Yeah, maybe so. That's a good perspective as well.
And we get very spoiled in Toronto when we go to watch our games, but guess what? We go to a lot of other hockey arenas. They're not all sold out every night. It's a different, I think how many teams, got moved and realigned, etc. simply because they couldn't draw anybody. I was talking to a buddy of mine in Atlanta, and he said, yeah, I could get Thrashers tickets any day of the week. Nobody even knew the team was around.
Well, then that's another part. That's another thing to be had. Get rid of some of these teams. Like, why is Arizona still an NHL team? I don't get it.
Hold on. They're going to buy a plot of land out in Mesa, and they're going to get a whole new arena.
Oh, yeah, by 2045.
I just got back from Arizona, and I got to tell you, Zach, you cannot tell that there is a hockey team there. There's no sign of them whatsoever. You can see the Cardinals. You can see the Diamondbacks. You can see the Phoenix Suns are everywhere. I would say as far as popularity goes, the Suns are number one over there. You have no clue there's a hockey team in that city.
No, the university didn't even know about them when they asked to play there.
Different world, my friend. But then remember, the Canadian Football League once had teams in the U.S. too. So,
yeah, times it'll be interesting.
Times were different. Well, you may still get expansion teams into Hamilton one day, and we may still get that Quebec City team. So you never ever know.
I'm waiting for that. I don't know why they haven't yet, but I'm waiting for that.
Zachary Rain of Rain.Finance. Thank you today. Today we totally sat on hockey. There was no money talk whatsoever except for NHL cap dollars talk. But we love your wisdom, your smiling face. We encourage the viewers to send in their comments. And believe me, they love to comment on your hockey knowledge and your insights.
Yeah.
And how is the world in finance and life otherwise?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love being here and I love reading some of their comments. And you know, the world of finance, if we're being completely honest, is looking a little scary for some people, and that's okay. Because as a superhero nerd, the night is always darkest just before the dawn, right? So it's scary, but there's hope. There are good people out there. Hopefully, like I can tout myself as one of them, who are looking to help you guys. You know, get through the next year or two, and then after that, we'll be uphill, and hopefully, we are moving fast. So, the world in brain finance is great. Lots of people still need insurance, still need financial planning, still need investments. So, be sure to reach out if you guys need anything, and enjoy summer. I think it's Euro summer right now, right? Everybody's in Europe.
It's boiling hot. That's all I gotta say. And people are actually traveling as this is in August. But folks, you have the contact information below. You can leave your comments on this episode. You can reach out to Zachary Rain of Rain.Finance for hockey comments, money comments, life comments. We value your opinion, all of you, even the funny ones. And Zachary Rain, we'll have you back real soon on The Chosen Life. Thank you again for your insights.
Thank you for having me. It is my pleasure.